Google is supposed to be a benchmark at workplace. Everyone wants an office like Google. I know some of you may disagree, but it's been traditionally there. So I'm taking the liberty of saying it. But when we look at the future, what will be the shape of workplace in future? What will we look like? So I thought it's best to ask you because you're as a leader there.
Thank you. We are shamelessly proud of our offices. So, firstly, I think the office workspace has to reflect the philosophy of the company. If your company, and that's why the workspaces are changing, from earlier offices which were very hierarchical driven, you had cabin sizes were dependent on the size of the designation of the person sitting in them and possibly the amount of gray hair they had. And in the newer offices, and many of us have seen that transition within the companies that we are working. And so eventually it has to reflect the philosophy. It cannot be the other way. If your workspace is going to be open and free seating, etc., but your culture is hierarchical, then I personally, and this is my personal view, I don't think it will work. And I've had the opportunity of working for such a company, and it was difficult because I think the culture was not in line with the way the office was. Coming back to Google and building on the earlier point, the three things that we look at as our cornerstone are transparency, our voice of employee, and are around innovation. Now, our workspaces, which are open seating, we don't have, our desks are the same across the organization, whichever level you are. We have our famous micro kitchens, which means no Googler is more than a few hundred feet away from a micro kitchen, which is a basic amount of, and what we call basic may not be basic in most definitions, but there's food and there's refreshments. And of course, we have a host of free services for the employees. The idea is that employees should feel comfortable and bring their best and authentic self to the office. And I think that helps people bring out their creative best. The micro kitchens also serve as a place where informal bonding happens, and a lot of ideas come up when people are just having dialogues which are comfortable. Like right before this, we were talking about how many of us know each other from our previous avatars. And the chemistry and the ease with which we connect with each other will translate into more meaningful discussions. The same goes for when you have informal connections with people in our micro kitchens or other shared facilities, enables people to come up with better thought process, brainstorm ideas, and think beyond the boundaries of the structures and the functions which organizations sometimes are bound to have.
I want to open this up to everyone and say, in your own view and vision, what would the workplace of tomorrow look like if any one of you wants to add on?
Yeah, I think not bound by boundaries. So I think tomorrow's workplace or tomorrow's conferences are not going to be physical. I think mostly they'll gravitate towards being more virtual, where people will, and I think you will talk about it because we're talking about gigs and experiences, and because when people are signing up to interesting work, they could be working with multiple companies, they could be working from anywhere. So I do think like in the future, like if you just look at your composition of, you may still have people who come into work, but I think the percentage of employees, or again today your physical workspace is an asset that a company owns, right? Now if you kind of rethink that for the next 10, 15, 20 years, as companies are rethinking everything, do you really need to invest in so much of real estate? And that's why WeWork has come about. And today there are so many companies, including companies like ours, when we go to do new cities, we don't necessarily go and build an office. We say, hey, let's just go access WeWork, and they actually have exactly some of the features that Preeti's already spoken about. So yeah, I would think it's more collaborative spaces versus fully owned spaces, and it could be more virtual.
Sure, go ahead.
With your permission.
No, go ahead.
See, innovation needs flatness, it needs boundarylessness, it needs visionary style of leadership, and that's where it comes from. But it has a very major failing. Its failing is that where and what will be the nature of the next innovation which will sort of level the previous industry, nobody can predict. And if you can't predict, are you going to put your good money behind it? That's a challenge that organizations face. And therefore, the need to be efficient, right? And leverage efficiency to generate resources so that you may fund the innovation. The organizations that can make the twain meet are the future organizations. That's called dynamic, so sorry for leveraging, using a little bit of jargons, but that's ambidexterity. You'll still need roads, you'll still need steel, you'll still need concrete houses maybe, or maybe they'll be made of some other stuff. Maybe you'll use AI to manage that better. So the challenge with human beings and the workplace for tomorrow, in my perspective, is that on one hand, you have to have your foot in traditional industries as well and manage them effectively with maybe a little bit of larger hierarchy. At the same time, you need to manage potentially future innovation so that this may be supported when the time so arises. And both have to be a symbiotic relationship. So the workplace of tomorrow are a mix and management of both kinds of structures and systems and cultures. One of boundarylessness and one of deep functional competencies which can only be built with stored boundaries. So you'll need both. And managing both is the biggest challenge that we face in my perspective. I mean, I'm sorry to actually
I think that's
disrupt it a
great.
little.
No. That's the whole idea about disruption. Let me come to you, Prasoon. I think we've got some ideas on workplace for tomorrow. But I think what's also important is, when I joined the workforce, or when a lot of us joined, we had a traditional idea about what a workplace should be. How are you preparing young workforce in your institutions to be ready for a futuristic, non-traditional workforce when they enter, especially when India is, all about young and youth and Gen Z and millennia?
Okay, so it's very important whichever journey you start, it's very important to understand where you are. And we realize that, and most of us know that organizations of today, or probably past, which are still existing today, they were not ever built for change. They were built like a fortresses. They were immovable. They were impenetrable by competitions. And organizations, that's why, and look at that, even the Lehman Brothers, Blockbusters, Research in Motion, and all those, they're too little and too late. So we need to prepare these generations, for building up organizations for tomorrow. And these cannot be fortresses. Besides, they may have some those wall things and all that, so they need something different. We mostly relied on, our generations and previously heavily relied on technology. We talk about we are apprehensive of losing our jobs to AI and ML. For them, we prepare them to understand technology. For them, AI and ML is friend. They are not afraid. We are afraid. They will not lose any job because of AI or ML. They would make them friend. They will be more productive. So how do we start? The idea is to train people who are going to teach those people. And the entire concept of teaching changed for us. So we talked about there is no more teaching, they are adults. So let's talk about learning. And their learnability. Learnability is very, very important aspect. So we create learnability, so they become learners. That's because to face innovation and face changes, they need to be moving and thinking onto it and all that. We talked about engagement, innovation and impact is the thing which we are training all our faculty members and staff, that how do they engage not only students and the industry, and how do we impact, and how do we innovate in terms of teaching pedagogy, and the way how assessment is a learning tool, not assessment is giving you marks that you got 10 out of 15 or something like that. How it is a learning tool. So that's the way we work on that. So that's what.
Maybe just to add on to what Prasoon said, I think as corporates, we also have some important role to play in terms of preparing the generation who would be joining us subsequently. Just to share a few examples, and this our learning is the fact that we have this program in Nestle, we call it Enreach, where we try to bring the life case scenarios as a part of the curriculum. For most of the technical colleges. So for example, the technical colleges from where we recruit, we try to be a part of the syllabus of these technical colleges so that by the time the person comes out, we are actually preparing them for the situations or the circumstances that they face. Just a case in point being, Nestle, we have talked about the fact that by 2025, we'll be a plastic-free company. Now, sustainability tends to be a big area. What we did was an example I would like to share is the fact that we picked up people from different Indian Institute of Packaging across the India, and we rolled out a live case scenario, and where these people came back to us with suggestions, with inputs, which was actually quite interesting, and in fact we have taken it forward. So in a way, we also provided an opportunity to them to understand what most of the organization today are facing. So I think definitely it's a question of partnership, Prasoon, I would say, from corporate side as well. And I think we need to encourage more of this.
One line I would add to, I want to appreciate, the word is said, sustainability. As trust is important, trust is innovation. In fact, trust you can replace with innovation. At the same way, you can replace innovation by sustainability. Sustainability is so important, and innovation brings sustainability.